18. For the record, all city council members are present tonight. We have members of the staff. We have members of our fire department with us this evening. Chief Brinkman's here, and we appreciate their attendance also. We've called this meeting this evening for a special reason. A week ago yesterday, we had a meeting in South Ogden, and I attended that. Along with Roger, we had Mayor Porter there from South Ogden. We had Matt Dixon, the city manager from South Ogden. They were there, and along with our two chiefs, we spent over an hour just going through the presentation and talking about it, asking questions, and because we feel like this is an important thing. And when we came back, in fact, we ended up about almost another half hour just talking about asking questions and things. And we felt like this was important enough that we have this at a time that you weren't conflicted with something else, another full meeting, and we just don't want you to. I know how meetings are when you're adding meetings to meetings, and that's why with the meeting planned this evening, city council meeting, we felt maybe that Tuesday night, at the end of the month, we'd go that way. But as we left the meeting in South Ogden last Monday, we agreed that we didn't need to do a joint meeting with South Ogden Council. We didn't see any advantage there, and we just decided to bring it back to our own city council, make the presentation. What I found from attending this meeting that one, it's an interlocal agreement. It isn't any kind of a fire district, and we have interlocal agreements with other cities. I know the police department does for different things, and so this is strictly an interlocal agreement, and it benefits Riverdale City with response times mainly, and what it does for South Ogden, it benefits them with capabilities. It gives them additional capabilities in their city. And I know these two chiefs have worked hard trying to come up with a better plan for the south end of the city. They've done a lot of work. They did with the fire district. They've done a lot with this to try to improve the service. And it's just it really, it does improve the service for both cities. So I'll turn it over. I guess, do we go to Chief Shawley? Do you want to start it off? Do you have anything, Roger, you want to say before we start? You're welcome to.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I just wanted to thank both Chief Shawley and Chief West for being here tonight. We did invite City Administrator Matt Dixon from South Ogden. Unfortunately, he's off in California for a week or so on vacation, so he couldn't attend with us. But I just want to echo what Mayor Searle said relative to the work. It's data that's been compiled. I would recommend that we strongly look at it. There's some really good efficiencies in this. And as Mayor Searle mentioned as well, our southeast corner of our city struggles with response and adequate support up there. So that being said, I think there's some really good, effective programs in here that can really help our community in the fire service and improve the safety of our residents, not only for us, but as well as for South Ogden. But the bottom line is that we lose boundaries. And many times we're seeing, and I'll leave this for the chief, we're seeing units that are dispatched that are way far out when there's a unit right next door. And for me, the biggest part of this is that we lose boundaries. But I'll let the chief speak to that more thoroughly. But I just wanted to thank Chief Shawley and Chief West for being here and for the work that they've put in on this. It's been now going, year and a half, Chief? 2 years maybe? So it's not something that we've taken lightly, and it's not something that we've just pulled out of the air. So that being said, I'll let you go, Chief.
So Chief West is here with me. We're going to kind of tag team this a little bit. He's going to have some ideas and some input here or there. This is probably one of the best joint efforts that I've seen between fire departments. Normally you get two chiefs that don't really, between the egos and everything else, don't really want to work, or they feel threatened by one another. And we haven't had that in this circumstance. We both have some very serious issues we need to deal with. And so that stems all this conversation that we've been having over this last 2 years. And I feel like this has been a pretty joint effort between all of us, because you guys brought up some valid concerns last time, a lot of concerns, and I think we addressed those. And we listened to what you had to say, and I appreciate Cody calling me smart. That was nice. And so I could come up with a better plan.
I want to see that on video.
I have it. I've recorded it. It's all plastered in my office. It's nice. I go to it often. So with that, here's the concerns that we keep coming up against, that we've talked about with you guys, with other people, with other councils. So first and foremost, we talk about the benefits without Washington Terrace. Is there a benefit to this without Washington Terrace? And I think we can show there is. And then staffing of fire engines. I'm going to share a very personal experience. I'll probably tear up and bawl my eyes out. I'm going to share a very personal experience with you guys tonight that I experienced in my fire career that drives me, and why we continue to fight for stuff like this over and over again. And I want you to really look at it, that this is not selfish reasons. We have no selfish gain here. I don't get an extra dollar in my paycheck. In fact, we get more responsibility that we're going to have to work with in any of these scenarios. But our staffing of our fire trucks being two-handed, we've got to figure that out. And this allows us to figure that out in a lot of ways. Cost savings and efficiencies, we can show some of that. Something different than a fire consolidation or a fire district. This is different. We're going to show that this doesn't require the city to lose any of their budget. You don't lose any of your assets. And it is an interlocal agreement that we drop the borders. And we do things through dispatch, and we do things differently as a service provider. And we're going to copy a couple very successful service providers, both in Washington, Salt Lake City, and around us. Cost-effective staffing. We're going to talk about our staffing changes that would occur and how that would be handled. And then I really think we need to address what is our mutual aid auto aid system. And there is a misconception there of what we really do and don't get. So we'll bring that into it too. So this is my event. And I say this is my event because this is what changed my life as a firefighter. This is what drove me to be a fire chief one day. And this is why I look at every single thing I do within a fire service. When I go after equipment, when I go after staffing, anything else, I compare it to this incident. This happened, this was the anniversary of 19 years Sunday that we lost a firefighter in Layton City. I'm going to show you this video that was on KSL. This is what KSL showed that night, the night we lost our firefighter. And the gentleman in the front of this video was me getting ready to go through the window to look for our firefighter. You're going to notice there's two of us and how inadequate that was that night. And so I have a very deep passion with this. We get to this window, we think we have what we call a pass alert. Our firefighter, he's been disoriented, lost for up to 20 minutes at this point. This is the only access back in to find him. You notice 1037?
Dad, do you know what that thing is? What that thing is?
We didn't have him on the roof until 8 minutes later. He was 40 feet from that window.
That looks like a fireman though.
Good lot. Amazing. Little free fireman. He's not doing it.
Another burned policeman.
He's out.
Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in.
Tyler.
Cool, Dad, you recorded that. Bring out another fireman. We're probably going to bring out 20 more. I'm getting
He's
fired.
not operating on his own power, is he? No.
They're bringing out another fireman. He got hurt dead there. They took him out of the house. He's in that window. Really bad. Awesome. We're probably all over
This is my audio. This is when I found him. And what I say is command from RIT. And this isn't cut. There was no incident commander. There was, but he wasn't listening to us. He wasn't in a position to listen to us, and he couldn't hear us with where he was located. And what I say is we've located our firefighter. We have an audible alarm. He's not breathing. We're going to move him to the window. But he's not copying me. He's not hearing this. So that was my event. That's why I do what I do. That's why I say what I say. And recently I've been challenged a couple times because of past fire chiefs in this city and some dishonesty, some things that they weren't upfront and honest about. That's not me. That's not what I do this. I'm not building a dynasty here. We're doing it for that reason right there, so that doesn't happen here. I, as a fire chief, cannot lose a firefighter in a line of duty death. So, with our proposal, the interlocal basically combines our administrative oversight. So that allows me and Cam oversight of this to run the department with also both city councils and mayors and city managers involved in that oversight. So it gives power to everybody. No one loses power. We work at this as a joint, combined effort. We work towards a single ambulance billing, which would be, let's evaluate what South Ogden has, what Riverdale has, let's compare the two, and let's see which one's best. And then let's see what's going to be most effective and work towards that. The city functions will remain the same. Oh Glory Days, tours, mayor luncheons, nothing changes with the cities. You don't lose a fire chief. Both cities still have a fire chief. You retain all your assets. Nobody gives a fire truck away to a fire district. Similar agreements. We found that Santa Clara, Ivans, down in St. George, they do this with both their fire and police. Both cities have an interlocal agreement. It's a little bit different. Santa Clara takes the bulk of it, and Ivans does pay into some of this, and they allow Ivans to use, or Santa Clara to use some of their fire equipment. The fire district up in Washington, Fire District 7 and 3, back in 2016, they decided to go with an interlocal agreement between the two agencies to improve operations, efficiency to the community, response, and eliminate redundancy. They didn't go to another district. It's two districts that combined into an interlocal agreement. So we've looked all over the place for some of these options. And between me and Chief West, we both went back to National Fire Academy. We go talk to people in National Fire Academy and start picking brains of, hey, how are you guys dealing with this? Everybody across this country has staffing issues. And so we're all challenged with very similar things. So how are we going to do this? What does this interlocal agreement do? And I'm going to show you some examples as we move through this. But what this does for our response is we're going to look at a true first responder concept. We're going to look at, if you ever, Salt Lake City and Gold Cross. Maybe we look at this a little differently on how can we make that ambulance more efficient like a professional or a private industry would do it. We look at Washington County, Rescue One or Medic One. The Medic One system up in Washington is very successful. They do not have an ambulance in every fire station. They do not have a paramedic truck in every fire station. They use a strong first responder concept and utilize their ambulances a little more efficiently. We're going to be able to staff the fire trucks now with 3 minimum instead of 2 with this concept. We're going to use the ambulances more effectively. We will still have a total of 4 transport units within this interlocal. We've also talked to dispatch. Dispatch has the capability of doing a lot of cool things with our ambulances by bringing them up, taking them down, and making them more efficient, more effective, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that would play into this concept. Full command staff. Right now, we just had the fire at Polo Loco. I was the only incident commander there. I didn't have a safety officer, and I didn't have a support officer at a commercial fire. With this concept, with 3 of us there, there's a really good chance we're going to fulfill that command structure. We're going to fulfill that incident command, that safety officer, and that support officer role, which if you look at our NIOSH report from NIOSH and OSHA of our 9 shortcomings of that fire we had, 7 of them revolve around incident command failure because our incident commanders were hands-on. It's the same thing we're doing today. Our captains are hands-on. That is your incident commander if I'm not here, and he's coming in on an engine. So increase safety for personnel and citizens that way. If we get 3 people on an engine, we're more effective. We can get water on it quicker. We can search for people quicker. So what's the staffing proposal? Right now, if we are fully staffed and we don't run short, Riverdale has 4 24/7. We have 3 full-time, 1 part-time. South Ogden has 4 at their station, and then they have 3 at their 82 station up on Harrison. What we're proposing is that Riverdale, we bring on a 12-hour shift. I'll let Chief West talk a little bit about that 12-hour shift. We put a 12-hour shift on at Riverdale during our busiest time period, so we remain at 4. Because what we saw with our response models is a spike between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. So if we add in that 4th person during those spike time periods, we can cover that still adequately. And we drop down at 3 at night. I'll tell you how we get away with that in a second. That brings that station 81 in South Ogden up to 5. We send our part-time personnel, our 24-hour part-time personnel to South Ogden, and they work with a South Ogden firefighter on an ambulance, and we work out that ambulance first in to everywhere in the South Ogden and Riverdale area. Go ahead with your 12 first. You want to cover that?
Oh, we can do that after.
Okay.
The 3.
And then South Ogden 82 doesn't change anything. They're going to a pumpulance come July, which is an engine ambulance. So that actually makes us more effective because as soon as that engine transports a patient to the hospital, as soon as that patient's in the ER, that engine goes back in service from the ER. So
The 12-hour floater shift like this up here, we talked with both mayors last Monday, trying to figure out the costs and stuff on that. In essence, South Ogden would get 3 FTEs with this 12-hour position. So the funding obviously is going to have to go through South Ogden mostly on that. And when I say 3 FTE, because we get the 4th person from 41 up to 50, or excuse me, up to 81, on not just a 24-hour shift, but 1 on each of our 3 shifts. So there's the 3 FTEs. So we'd have to figure out how much South Ogden pays, or if they pay the whole thing, or anyway. So South Ogden benefits from that, having, like I said, 3 FTEs with that 1 12-hour shift.
Chief, is that 12-hour shift was filled by part-time individuals?
part-time.
Yeah, that is correct.
So tonight what we're basically asking for, because of that's the one unknown we don't have for you right now. So tonight we're saying if you like this proposal, then let us go build the proposal, build the contract, look at it, you do the final approval that way, and we get the final numbers on that. But like Cam's saying, really South Ogden does have a great benefit from that 12-hour shift, but so does Riverdale, because that gets us our biggest staffing time period during our busiest time period. So the other thing with staffing that I didn't put up here is one concept that we're looking at, because we struggle with part-time staffing. We struggle with people to come back and fill shifts. We would have the ability, if we have an interlocal agreement, part of the interlocal is we have the ability to take my part-time staff, and Cam can use them as well at 81 and 82. I can take his part-time staff and I can use them in Riverdale. And it doesn't change anything with pay, it doesn't change benefits, it doesn't change anything, because we're 2 separate departments still. And with 2 different funding avenues, it doesn't do anything through URS. We had Stacy confirm that. And then also with our insurance, because we're both using the Utah Trust is fine with this concept, with insuring our people.
Is there a union involved with this?
Nope. So how does that model concept work? So Engine 41 would then be the first responding unit to everything west of the bridge. The reason why west of the bridge is because that is our quickest response area for that engine. That makes us the most effective. We have 3 people on there who are trained up to an advanced EMT minimum level. We give them all the medical equipment. They can perform anything an ambulance crew can perform other than transport. The other thing is we have 3 of them now instead of 2 on that engine. We have Rescue 31 coming out of Roy that's less than 5 minutes, which will show a scenario here in a minute. And then Ambulance 681 coming out of the South Ogden station on 40th is only a couple minutes behind us. So with that first responder concept, using that the way we really can use it, we're still getting 5 people to a scene in under 4 minutes, and the transport is less than a couple minutes behind us. We're utilizing our personnel more effectively. Once the ambulance and rescue gets there, the engine goes back in service to run a second call from that scene or whatever we need to do with that engine company. It creates flexibility. And in our job, we need flexibility. We need redundancy in some cases to handle incidents. But Station 41 will still have a reserve ambulance there. There will be times that station will still respond an ambulance out of it because Station 81 will have 2 ambulances at it. They'll have an Ambulance 81, that's just our call signs, and Ambulance 811. And dispatch has the ability that once that one unit becomes busy, they automatically start bringing up the next line units prior to another dispatch call. Station 82 is not going to change. South Ogden 82 with the Pumpulance is going to remain the same, and they're actually one of the busier stations between the two of them. So why do we want this? Well, I showed this before. I pound it home. You can't hardly see it over on these other ones, but we need 16 firefighters to a scene. Polo Loco, for example. Once again, this is the 3rd fire we've had in Riverdale this year that I have not received an engine from Ogden City Fire Department. My engine came from our far west. Engine 61 over again, and it's every single time, and we're getting huge delays. And on Polo Loco, when my engines pull up, engine 41 had 2, his engine had 2, Roy had 2. I had to combine 2 engine companies to get one task done. Normally, we can take each engine company and give them an individual task and be more efficient. Now we're combining engine companies to accomplish one task because we don't have enough people. This helps us to get to that 16. The 27 is overwhelming. We're going into Davis County for a strip mall fire. So that's just the reality of what we have in Weber County. There's the standards that we try to follow. Those are the EMS response standards. If you notice at the bottom, we have to have a first responder within 4 minutes, a BLS, an ambulance, or a paramedic unit within 8. And those are the standards that we try to follow. That's what we'll be eventually held to one day if something does happen. Utah doesn't have a standard, by the way. I don't know if you guys know that. They kind of rely back on this if we try to get this, if we can. So how does this work? This concept would not work in Layton. It would not work in Northview. It wouldn't work in a lot of departments. It wouldn't work because their transport times are too long. Here we have 2 trauma centers within less than 10 minutes on a transport time. Our turnaround time with our ambulances are anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes from the time we're dispatched until available at the hospital. So because of those short turnaround times, we can go into this first responder concept. We can have reserve ambulances in place because that ambulance is not out of service for extended time periods like you would see at Layton. A Layton call, an hour and a half minimum per call for an ambulance to be out of service. They run into not having any more ambulances simply because of that reason. We have the ability to do it this way because of, if you look at the time to borders, the longest we're out, 6 minutes. That's to Riverdale's border from Ogden Regional. McKay. Ogden Regional's 5. We're not far. And those are per day averages for ambulance calls, only EMS calls, and how often those ambulances are out of service and what it would change to. And if you notice, the Riverdale unit, the fire unit, would be in service now more often than not to respond either as first responder or fire unit within this jurisdiction.
With the first responder model, as soon as the transport agency gets on, or the ambulance gets on scene, or the rescue gets on scene, they can clear and go on to a different call if need be. So once the ambulance arrives, if rescue's there, they can take from there, and first responders, the engine can go back into service and take a different call if need be. So that's why it's minimal out of service time.
Here's an example. I didn't pick the busiest day. I just grabbed one. This is recent. I have to look at the time, the date on it. So if you look at this, what this is showing is that almost every single Ogden ambulance is out of service right there because there's 4 transfers going out of hospitals. So they have 4 of their ambulances on transfers. And if you look at the ambulance 82 right there on the fall, that's the South Ogden call that they're on. And so they are being paged right now. Ambulance 81 coming out of South Ogden is transporting the hospital. So they're tied up. What that means to us, South Ogden's empty. And we don't have an adequate fire response now coming out of South Ogden, and they don't have an adequate fire or EMS response in South Ogden. So this concept would now allow, in that same situation, South Ogden's 81 station would still have a 3-handed ladder truck that's cross-staffing another ambulance back in service to take the next call. Riverdale would also be in the same boat. We would have an engine company and potentially a staffed ambulance, or not potential, we have a staffed ambulance sitting at Station 41. So in these time frames, we have that redundancy to back ourselves up because we can't depend on anybody because really how busy the cities are getting. So then with that, there's your fire stations in Weber County. Every single fire station you have in Weber County. You can see where Roy is, all the different departments. If Riverdale has a call, there's your 5 stations right now that are not available to Riverdale. Period. They're not coming. Ogden does not allow but 1 engine out of their city at a time. Our assigned engine is ladder 4, sitting over there on 24th. During Polo Loco, ladder 4 was at training. Not on a call, not out of the city. They were at training. Ogden did not send another fire truck. All the other engines were in service. Same goes with Cam. The only difference is he gets engine 5 off of Harrison. Engine 5 is a transport engine. The only time that engine goes out of the city is for fires. If we have a medical in South Ogden, a medical in Riverdale, that engine is not available to us to come in as a transport unit. They don't send it outside their city. Anything you want to add to that?
Just
And also Roy too. Roy 32 doesn't come.
yeah, if Roy's got their engine out their city on another call, they're not going to send 31. Same with Ogden. If Station 3 out here up in North Ogden, they're not going to send Station 5 to anywhere out of their city.
So what Cam ends up getting is he ends up getting the 64 station, which is up here. In our situation, we get Far West. That is the next closest engine by drive time to Riverdale. And that's who we've been getting the last 3 fires, is that Far West station. And we're driving past all these other fire departments to get to Riverdale because of the way our mutual aid and auto aid is set up within this county. It's not as good as some people think. It's not like we have 5 engines available to us from Ogden. That's not it. We don't have that.
The mutual aid automatic aid is based on best case scenario. And that's just like the screen that shows everybody's out of service. That's very rare that best case scenario is available to us. So.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, when Washington Terrace elected not to go with this, when they voted it down, they said they were going to go with Ogden City more. They were going to request additional aid. Mm-hmm. Does this nullify that request that they won't?
No, so what Washington Terrace gets from Ogden City is they get a battalion chief, a rescue truck, and an ambulance. They don't get a fire truck on a fire.
Okay.
Their ambulance that they get is ambulance 51. They designate 51 because that's the Washington Terrace designation, but that is also their transfer ambulance out of all the hospitals.
Yeah, to me, it looks like they're really shorthanded that way, with what's going on.
Yeah, they're busy.
Chief?
Yeah.
You want to use that example, that one coming out of Plain City? Is that worth mentioning? I know it's one you told me when I was up at the station the other day when you were on the... Well,
So-
you followed it. You followed the whole thing that happened. It was interesting.
Both of us were talking when this was going down. Plain City had a medical. Ogden City provides ambulance service to Plain City. It's called Ambulance 71. Ambulance 71 was busy. They were on a call in Ogden because both Ambulance 71 and the Washington Terrace ambulance is still used for 911s in Ogden. So the Ambulance 71 was in Ogden on another call. All of their other ambulances were busy. Guess which ambulance they sent to Plain City?
Now, this
Washington Terrace ambulance went to Plain City. Then we had another episode happen where Washington Terrace's ambulance was busy. All the other ambulances were tied up or in training. They sent Plain City's ambulance to Washington Terrace.
Yep, that's the one you were telling me about.
And that's happened more than once.
Yeah, more than once.
So we're trying to avoid that. And the only thing we can fix right now is what we have
South
the
Ogden.
ability to do.
Yeah.
And I wish, obviously we wanted Washington Terrace involved in this. And who knows, maybe they will eventually. think about coming in and doing something with us. But right now, we are going to use Washington Terrace for something, though. We're going to get something out of them. And this is how. So let me give you an example. So if you look at this map here, you can see the 3 stations are in blue. They're kind of small up there. But you can kind of see where South Ogden Station is on 40th, how close it is to that whole Riverdale 300 West block, everything east of the overpass. And you can also see going up into the terrace area by Romer Park, they've got a pretty good shot coming right up on Washington Boulevard into the terrace. I've ran this multiple times. I've gone different directions. And what we come up with is if you look at our current response situation, Ambulance 41 and Engine 41 are going to take a call. If that call happens that I've got on the map up by Romer Park on 600 West, it's going to take us greater than 8 minutes, less than 10 minutes. There's variables, traffic, weather, but we're not going to get there any sooner than 8 minutes. I've drove it multiple times. No way we're getting there in less than 8 minutes. South Ogden is greater than 6, less than 8. They cut 2 minutes off of that coming out of that station right there. Washington Terrace is less than 5, pretty much anywhere up there. They're less than 5 minutes. So
Don't leave out. Ogden City, we don't know.
Yeah.
We really don't know.
Oh.
Ambulance 51 station in the Terrace, that's their first out transfer ambulance. So it is very rarely in Washington Terrace. So
Well, let me point what he's talking about. So if we're busy, the next ambulance that goes up to our citizen is South Ogden's 81 ambulance. If they're busy or don't have staffing, the next ambulance comes out of Ogden City. Right now, we can't tell you where that ambulance is, and it will not be Ambulance 51 sitting in the terrace, and it will not be Engine 5, which are the 2 closest units to our area.
Can I just get some clarity here? You use the word a transfer ambulance. Expound what that means. I think I understand.
Inter-facility transfers, so they go from, say, Ogden Regional to McKay or Ogden Regional to
Nursing homes.
wherever.
Nursing home. Yeah.
Primary children's.
If
University Hospital.
I've had some family members who are EMSs, and that's what Gold Cross does. From the airport up to primary children's. Gold Cross typically handles those going to a care facility or whatever. Why do they not provide any services up here?
Ogden City has a license in all Weaver County for interlocal facility transfers.
Oh.
So that's money. That's
Yes,
big money.
because ambulance service, as I understand it, and as I look at is a money generating activity. It's a revenue source, and so by designating your ambulances to do transports takes them out of the emergency apparatus.
Yeah.
You're nodding, yes.
Yes.
They're out of service. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, like
12
that,
hours a day on
like
average?
that one
I'm sorry?
screenshot.
12 hours a day?
Like that one screenshot, they had 4 of their 5 ambulances on inter-facility transfers at the same time. So we're trying to fix our cities with.
Well, here's the impact, though. Did you notice that his ambulance from Station 81 was in Ogden, doing the 911? So we're now going into Ogden to support their 911 system when they've got 4 transfers going on.
So Ogden City is almost using that as a revenue source.
Yeah, it is a revenue source. It's a huge revenue source. So in our case, how would it change? Well, the other thing we do is because we drop borders, we get closest units. Because now a Riverdale ambulance doesn't look any different than a South Ogden ambulance or an engine or anything. We get closest units now with the borders being dropped through dispatch. So now it looks like now we get South Ogden 81, South Ogden 811, South Ogden 82, and Riverdale 841. Here's the thing that supports us and makes us more efficient. If they're out, we lose revenue to Ogden City. If it's over here, we lose revenue to Roy. If one ambulance is busy, Roy comes into Riverdale. That goes away. We now support each other, and we gain our revenues back on those second and third out calls, which happen pretty frequently. So we're able to capture some of that additional revenue as well.
question. So you can designate that. You can say we don't want Roy as the second. We want South Ogden. Or
Yeah, as soon as we drop the borders, they're basically our ambulances.
That's the dispatch thing. We won't even have to do.
That's good.
so you get that revenue.
Yep. So the way we would run this thing is if it's a revenue, if it's a transport out of Riverdale gets revenues. If it's a transport out of South Ogden, they get the revenues. And the revenue chains stay the same, except now we have a redundancy built in.
Okay.
Oh, you're good.
I had a conversation, actually several conversations with a Washington Terrace person. And I said, ambulance service is a revenue source. And this person said no. And so by outsourcing that, Washington Terrace, I know they have a lease agreement, but they're losing a revenue stream. And so did somebody in that last iteration kind of grab them by the, shake them and say, hey, look, if you, plus and minuses, this is a net positive for you.
But Ogden came in and paid them $50,000 to maintain the ambulance in Washington Terrace. So they just gained a revenue stream.
Well,
they didn't have to worry about supplying the ambulance.
Oh, that's what happened.
And that's very common. So, Ross, dress for less. Okay, we have a fire. A lot of the times our commercial fires come in as a fire alarm initially, just like our whole loco did. It came in as a fire alarm first, and then it was reported as a structure fire by employees. So in the middle of the night, if we have a fire, that's going to come in as a fire alarm. Right now, Riverdale 41 goes en route. We have a minute turnout time, 5 to 6 minute drive time. We're 6 minutes into Ross. Station 81, greater than 2, less than 3. Depending on that little traffic right there coming out of there. They're a lot closer, and that's why we would keep 41 west of the bridge and let 81 take the other side and drop those borders and go closest unit. They're by far closest unit. Pull loco, engine 41 pulls up out of Riverdale within 30 seconds. Ladder 81 pulls up, and we were there by ourselves for about 3 minutes until the next driving engine arrived. So we're very close to one another, and this is why this works so well in having this type of response model. The other thing, this is a medical response. Once again, we go down South Ogden, Riverdale as part of our ambulance trains. So then, what does this look like? Over by Councilman Mitchell's house. You get an engine still there with 3 people. Right available, you get Roy. And then you get South Ogden. And Rescue 31 is also coming out of Roy. They're less than 5 minutes into any of that area. The response changes. Engine 41 now with 3 people. They're still there within that less than 3 minute time frame. Rescue 31 still there in less than that 5 minute time frame. Ambulance 81 is there, less than that 6 minute time frame. We have a backup ambulance before we hit Roy again. And that's best. That's worst case scenario for us.
Who's 31?
Roy.
Roy. Okay.
That's sorry. Yeah, ask those questions because I get
Yeah.
the jargon going and I'm fine with it, but sometimes it's
Yeah,
We
we're
got-
fine. We're
we-
fine with it. but
we got told
sometimes we-
too much
31,
jargon,
41,
guys.
and 81. Okay.
Yeah. I tried to put Roy on as much as I could too. Here's an actual event. This is a fire we had in South Ogden. South Ogden at the time, their crews were on an ambulance transport. They rolled 1 person in a ladder truck. Engine 41, we didn't have ambulance 41. They were out on a call. They rolled 2 people in engine 41 to South Ogden. Engine 5 out of Ogden came. Engine 82 out of South Ogden. And then the rescue truck off of Harrison out of Ogden came. That's a pretty normal response. And then both of the chief officers from South Ogden. That does not meet. That's 13 people. And what is one single person on a fire truck going to do? What's even 2 people on a fire truck going to do? The change, Ladder 81 now has 3. Because it doesn't matter if their ambulance was gone, they'd still have 3 people there. Engine 41 has 3. Rescue 5. We also now pull engine 64 out of what? The UNA Highlands. Engine 82. And now we have ambulance 81 as a medical group coming in. And we have all 3 chief officers. And that fulfills our command staff. And it gives us the safety, it gives us support, and it gives us the incident commander. That wasn't too painful, was it, Councilman Arnold?
How come Braden gets a map and I don't?
I not get it. Oh, you didn't
No,
get
I mean a map by his. If there was an incident by his house, that's not fair.
You want me?
You're going to vote nay anyway, but I'm kind of a swing vote, so.
You just lock it
Hey,
in.
I
now.
gave you the compliment. I said I appreciate you calling me smart.
Hey, has Roy indicated a desire to want to get involved in something like this, or are they aware of this?
They're aware of it. We talked to the mayor a while back about it. Go ahead.
Chief, I just wondering if you can address, so calls will bounce back and forth relative to the ambulance that's on duty. I mean, if the ambulance 81 is on a transport, that call is going to, your ambulance and your station will be back up to that one? Is that how that, basically the calling pyramid for ambulances, I guess is what I'm
It's going to
asking.
be ambulance 81, ambulance 811, ambulance 41.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify.
And what we'll do is we put values to those ambulances. We assign values through dispatch. And so when that ambulance, the highest value gets pinged first. And then the next highest value will then get hit. And then the third highest value will then get hit. And so it's more about the management, but the capabilities we have through dispatch to do it automatically. And I made sure we confirmed that before we came here. I talked to both dispatch leads, and they can do that through Spillman. So, and all of our units are GPSed. We're already running it.
One more question, if I may. So if there's a medical in the terrace
Thank you.
and the 51's gone, who's going to get that call? Will that be an ambulance out of Ogden City?
Yeah, right now it's whatever ambulance is available in Ogden City. That could be Station 1. It's not going to be 5. 5 on Heritage.
That could come all the way from
Right. So
Plain
what,
City.
so what I'm getting at is a resident in the terrace, Washington Terrace resident, potentially could get an ambulance out of Plain City for a stroke or whatever.
Drive
Okay.
past. How many stations on the way?
That's where I'm going. So you pass 81, even Riverdale would be closer than Plain City. Okay, thanks.
So bringing back Washington Terrace. Washington Terrace runs a first responding unit. We currently have Washington Terrace going into the Riverdale area because they have less than that 5-minute response time. However, right now, we're not sure what that model looks like. Who are they using? Is it one? Is it two people? I've heard a lot of different things. Both of us signed an agreement through the state of Utah to have Washington Terrace run as a first responding unit. They have to have us sign this agreement to do so. So part of this, we want to have a conversation with Washington Terrace again. And part of their first responder, we're going to say we want 2 certified people, I don't care if it's in a pickup truck or fire truck, responding into that East Bench Riverdale side like we currently have, and help us out. Get that back.
And
Make
in
sure we
doing
get
that,
medical
they
response.
continue to get our automatic responses to their fires. So
those people won't be involved in transports. Those 2.
just first responders.
Just first responders.
And doesn't Washington Terrace mainly have volunteers, though? They have
Effective July 1st, they're supposed to be running 3 personnel as a first responder on a fire apparatus.
so that's supposedly coming up in
Supposedly,
July.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to also try to have them support us with. And I think they will.
So they give us a little, we ultimately give them more in fire response, but it benefits both communities. So
The most important thing I get out of your presentation is that you're concerned with the health and safety of the residents of the different communities and also the fire department. So I think you've really addressed a lot of the concerns that you have. I'm not an expert on fire suppression or, the things that you guys are, but I really enjoyed your presentation and how you address the different concerns.
Thank you. What are they? Yeah.
Are there any drawbacks that you can see?
Drawbacks we can see is we have a regular part-time person that works for us right now in Riverdale in that 4th position. And that regular part-time person that does have pretty much a scheduled shift every month, they may be at 81, they may be at 41. They will have to move more often. So we do have that issue that we're going to have to work around as a staffing issue. But it also gives us some flexibility that if I have for example, I have a new full-time firefighter right now. She doesn't have a lot of ambulance experience right now. It's nice for me to put her into a department, a station, that is running twice as many ambulance calls than we're running right now, and give her some of that experience and grab one of these guys that's a regular guy and keep him over here for a little bit. And so we have that flexibility to train some people. The other thing that we've talked about is if I have a captain's position open up, his people qualify to put in for it. If he does, my people have the opportunity to put in for it. And we can keep a lot of that in-house, which then creates developmental opportunity for our people that we don't have right now. We don't have a lot of that opportunity. So that opens up opportunity for our firefighters to grow, develop, learn. I've also talked to Ogden Regional. Ogden Regional is very interested in being our medical control facility and our training facility on the medical side of things. And that would allow us to go up, interact with those physicians, do some classes through those guys. They're dying for that to happen. And
no pun intended.
Yeah,
get in their ER, get in there. Get to do a lot of the stuff that we don't normally get to do on scene. So I can kind of piece together, hey, this is why you do it on scene this way instead of this way, because this is the end result. So
a huge benefit for Riverdale is if I get drawn into Roy, which we do quite often on a fire, and we get stuck into an extended situation or extended scene, we now have the latitude of pulling from South Ogden and coming over and staffing Riverdale 41 with at least 2 more people while this extended incident's going on, because they weren't pulled into it. And so we have that flexibility too. If the same thing happens there, we can move people around and be more efficient.
Does that fit your heavy rescue requirement?
Yeah. In fact, it allows so the truck's not rolling as often out of South Ogden, that pig, gas hog. But what we gain too is a 100-foot ladder truck, 100-foot bucket. That South Ogden now brings into all of our commercial areas, initial response, there it is. We don't have to buy one. That's my selfishness coming out. I don't need a 100-foot bucket anymore.
And 1 year trial period. If it works, if it doesn't work, it's 1 year. It's like
go back to what it is.
Go back. So
we don't have to exchange budgets. We don't have to do anything budgetarily. There's no money changing hands.
Well, the billing. I'm sorry. How's the billing for ambulance service? How is that Red Cross? I'm sorry, Gold Cross billing working out? And do you use it also?
We do not, but that's the easy thing. You send the face sheet to it's pretty seamless.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something that is not even a concern actually.
So the way Gold Cross does it in Salt Lake is Gold Cross will handle their ambulance billing, and then Salt Lake City will bill the Gold Cross guys for paramedic service, just like Roy does to us and Ogden does to us.
Okay, but they took over our billing.
They did. And Tyler told me that he can also work with this billing company, and we can look at a side-by-side comparison, and then we can also look like what it is combined, as basically if we were running it as a single private ambulance agency. And that's really what, if you're being honest, we're running it like a business. We're looking at this ambulance thing. We have very poor demographic. I have a 37% collection rate. He has a 40% collection rate. This allows us to work with that demographic and be a lot more efficient with our ambulance service and our transports and our billing.
So the quick turnaround on the ambulance is kind of a detriment on that collection part because we don't get to charge mileage. So 36 whatever per mile is a big thing when you're coming out of North Ogden or out west. We don't get to do that, but we can do creative stuff like this. So
yeah,
I'm good with it.
So I had a question on the staffing.
Yeah.
I'm out. See ya.
So we are adding one 12-hour person each day.
We want to propose adding the 12, but we want to figure out how that would be paid for first.
Yeah.
So that would be something we take back. We look at it. We say, okay, how much is that affecting South Ogden? How much does it affect Riverdale? who's benefiting from that the greatest? Because we're also going to use that as a floater position to help offset some of the overtime issues we're having. And some of the times where we couldn't get staffing at either his station or my station. And we float that person to kind of offset that a little bit. So it will help us both that way, but there's also some gains of South Ogden having 5 people.
Right, they gain 3 full time.
This is where Cody comes in, right?
Now,
This is why Cody's
Yeah.
so Riverdale's going to pick up a part-time. Is South Ogden going to pick up? No, your staffing will stay the same.
Well,
They get an extra
They get
person
one
in
of
there.
ours.
they get one of ours. That's why we got to figure out who funds the part-time, where that money comes from.
But at the very worst, you're looking at 3/4 and 3/4 if you're just like,
Very
we
worst.
just split it right in the middle. But
Yeah.
but they get quite a benefit out of getting a full time,
When
24
we
hours
was
a
running
day
the
person.
district thought, we were like, what was we, 68th?
Yeah, what was the call volume percentage, or
It's like 68-32.
yeah, something like that.
And that was if we split it by cost that way. So I think we need to look at it before we propose a number to you. 'Cause I just see it. He's lost a senior captain. He's going to be filling a senior, less senior captain. There's going to be some money benefit there. I've done the same thing, Riverdale, but we're not counting on that being. We're not great. It's not ours. It's your guys'. It's the city's. It's Cody's. But
That's where Cody comes in.
that's where Cody comes in. I told Cody that I wouldn't tack the budget right now.
Well, they actually saved because of those changes in positions. They actually saved the amount of money that's needed for the first year just by the changes in positions.
Part of it, but see, we need that money too. So like, you can't think, oh, we're saving that money because we need the scale to reset. That's how, we always tell you we don't know if this is sustainable and stuff. We need that reset. So you can't say, okay, we had the money last year, we still got the money, because it's kind of how our system works. But, in theory, running the numbers, Jared can correct me, but I think it's about 75 to 80,000 by the time you pay for benefits and everything, right, for that 12-hour part-time position.
Yeah, but we won't have any benefits.
Well,
I think it's
like
like
FICA and stuff. So with that, you're looking at about $80,000. So then, however that is allocated, we pay 100% of it, then that's an increase in their budget at 80,000. If we pay 32% of it, then it's 32% of that 80,000. That's kind of what they're looking at.
What about your medical review officer? Is that combined, or do you?
Our physician,
Separate
that's
that.
another area we can look at. We don't want to make a ton of changes this first year because we've got contracts signed with ambulance billing companies and medical physicians. If this went past the 1 year and we really like this and it's working well for us, the next step is combining ambulance billing, combining a medical physician, looking at some different administrative cost savings to some things. And that then we can start now looking into some contracts since it's going to be a longer term, more solid situation. That's why we're not asking for more than a year.
That's after the year. That stuff is going to be great if we do continue after
So
1 year.
when will the assessment happen? At 9 months, so that if we can renew it for a year, or are you going to stop at a year and assess, or what's the timeline? What are you looking at?
Like quarterly, or maybe I don't. I know we talked about it. I didn't think we had it.
Yeah, it would have to be. You got a qualitative look at it, right? So, number of calls, the hard figures you can really look at, but it's the other stuff, those service times. Did we really save response times here and there? So somehow, those calls that interchange like the gears, we got to somehow quantify as well as qualify. Where we're going to be with those two. Did we really save what we presented here tonight as far as response times? And that's going to be the challenge. Do you do that at the 6 month point? Do we have enough data to do that? Probably.
I think we'll have a good look at it.
Yeah, I think so.
I had one other question. And you're confident the dispatch can figure out what you're trying to get them to do? Like, I don't know much about it, but we can't have any mistakes. Like, I didn't realize that South Ogden was going to take this one. Or,
Yeah.
they'll be 100% understanding of what we're doing.
The other thing we gain with this, especially at the South Ogden station, is if that first ambulance goes out, there's 3 people back still staffing that engine and ambulance. The second ambulance goes out. The captain stays back and runs the city if we're not around. So we still have a supervisor, and the same thing happens at Riverdale. I have a captain that can pull themselves back, release an ambulance, and still manage the whole situation. And they will know, they'll know what's going on. They listen to each other all the time. But dispatch has promised me, I made him promise, that he can take Spillman and he can put weights on all those ambulances and values, and we can do that through cross-staffing. So.
You know, I'm thinking there might be a little sour grapes on the South Ogden part, because I think we just hired a South Ogden personnel to be a chief, or a captain, and this way that he kind of goes back, doesn't he?
Huh?
Didn't we just hire somebody from South Ogden?
We hired a part-timer. Well, no, we didn't hire anybody from South Ogden.
You think
So
if
now
we
that
had
would take
we
taken
that
fire
out
district.
part.
Oh, okay.
we were fire district.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
fire district.
okay.
So here's the thing. That's
The ones we swore in last week or 2
Yeah,
weeks
what's
ago?
already happening is, I'll give you an example. Nate Tracy, one of my captains, works part-time for CAM. He's one
Yeah,
of their
okay,
regular
that was
part-timers.
that's what I was
So
going
he
through.
leaves Riverdale and goes to South Ogden and works a 24-hour shift on his day off. Well, he'll get to maintain that and do that. And then with having this opportunity for our firefighters to maybe work, you're working the same agencies now. We're getting some consistency. We're getting some reliability. We know who we're working with now. We absorb both each other's part-time list. I get some of his full-timers working down at Riverdale. He does the same with me.
But that doesn't hurt them. Like, there's not like overtime or things where now it's not a different company or something. Like, there's no problems with that.
No
Okay,
problems.
because that is
And,
a-
and our
yeah.
our wages are pretty comparable too, so there might be a little tweaks on my end, but I don't require this rescue.
The heavy rescue
Heavy
service.
rescue stuff.
Does that mean we're paying too much?
No, we're not.
110%.
Oh, those certs they're pretty in depth. So. we just don't have any. We have Birch Creek. But that doesn't,
Ask him who he'd call if they get in trouble. But that's our presentation. So I hope we hit your concerns. I mean, we really tried to look at everybody's viewpoint of this and try to address everybody's viewpoint the best we possibly could, and still accomplish what selfishly we want. So
Do we have any other questions?
Does South Ogden personnel know how to deal with cows?
Yeah, falling on the
cows.
freeway.
Look, he doesn't even know
you guys
anything
know
about Riverdale.
You know, Cam used to work for us for 7
yeah,
years
I
at
used to
Riverdale.
be down there. I was
How
a
do you not know
part-timer.
about cows? Riverdale.
Cows and apples?
Oh yes, I've actually been on 2 of those. So. Yes, sorry.
You have something,
Cats,
Counselor
like cats.
Hanson?
You need to be a wrangler to live in Riverdale.
I
Or work
appreciate
in
you
Riverdale.
going back and this is much more palatable to me than last time. I'm obviously wait to see what Cody says, but
I know.
well done.
Do we have a consensus for them to move forward with working the agreement and get the bugs out? Okay, that's everybody. Cody, you okay with that?
We're going to go to South
Looks like
Ogden on the
you're good.
9th and do
Thank
the
you.
exact same thing with them. Week from today. So
Yeah, they're on spring break this week. They got 2 educators, the mayor
What's a
and
week
the
from
city
You say a week
council
from
members, so
What's the week from today?
they're gone.
South Ogden City Council meeting do the same
We don't
thing.
have a meeting a week from today.
That you want to come up there? You could watch it again.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Don't they stream? Can we watch online?
No.
Well, they're going. I don't know when they're going to start, but they don't currently.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to discretionary business. I got one item and just wanted to bring it up. I think you saw the emails and the news story on the recycling material. Recycled earth raised the price 47%. Tipping fees on the recycling. And other cities, I know Ogden City took the lead. That's what the newspaper article was about. It was, they're going to suspend for 30 days. Well, I don't think if it said for sure in there. Some of the others have done it for 30 days, but I know Ogden City decided to suspend taking waste recycled material to recycled earth. until they could negotiate and try to see if they could come up with a better price. They're going to take it to the transfer station. What I understand, I was in we have a mayor's dinner the last Thursday every month, and we had one last Thursday. There were 7 of the 15 mayors there. One city, Roy, I think theirs goes a different direction than Recycled Earth, but South Ogden City, Washington Terrace, and Far West had all decided they were going to suspend taking waste to Recycled Earth for 30 days or so until they can try to get their attention, see if they can get a better price out of it. And some of the other mayors didn't even know about it, that had happened. We found out, did you get a letter, Cody, or did you, Roger? I think you did, didn't you, Cody?
Not a letter. I was working with my dad's the treasurer for Far West, and I was working with him. We were talking budget sometimes, and he had called Recycled Earth just for his budget for next year, and they told him they changed prices, and they didn't even let anybody, like South Ogden, they didn't get the letter that they had increased their tipping fees until like a week after the increase had taken effect. So like Robinson, they have dumped there, and now they got to go back to their customers and say, hey, by the way, like last week when we dumped your recyclable materials, it was $20 more. I can't remember, $17.18 or whatever more. So we had to raise your bill because we didn't even know when we dumped it that it was more.
They didn't even really tell people in advance, and then the week following that, they've gone on vacation, so they're not available for any phone calls. So anyway, I'm just trying to get your thought whether we put it on Facebook, just kind of alert the residents. Not everybody sees Facebook, but just wanted to see what your opinion was if we should follow suit and just 30-day suspension type thing and just maybe cut off the stream to that one company that's receiving it to Recycled Earth like the other cities are doing.
Could we still pick up the blue cans and just?
You'll pick them up. They'll pick them up. It'll go to the transfer station.
Yeah.
So instead of doing 2 trips, they'll just do 1 trip, and I mean 1 truck will collect up all.
I don't know.
So can we put the blue can out every week?
I would think.
They notified their residents and said, hey, look, this is what we're doing. So they didn't get mad and like happen to follow the recycling truck to the transfer station and it dumps, like they've spent all week washing and sorting their recyclables and it ends up in the transfer station. So they put out a notice to their residents and said, hey, look, this is what's happened. We still want you to sort and continue to do your recyclables just like normal. But we're going to dump them for the next 2 weeks, basically, or the next 2 times in the transfer station, trying to work out an agreement so that there's transparency there and so a resident doesn't get upset.
And they did get upset before. I know there were people that were upset that when they found out, I think other cities this was quite a while back, that people that like to recycle don't like to find out it's going to the transfer station and with regular black can solid waste. So the one thing about us getting the word out, we'd almost have to wait till the end of the month to do it, to put it in the newsletter, because there's a lot of people don't read Facebook. There's some would be aware of it and put it on the website, but you'd have to wait. We just missed it this time on the April newsletter, the May newsletter. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, do it.
Could you use the reverse 911, or is that not an appropriate thing to use that for?
I don't know. Probably not. I would think not. It's probably not the right thing to use it for.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, can we defer this a little bit since we're not going to make a change? Perhaps with the handful of cities that have stepped up and said, and I'm taking action, it might be resolved within. And so when we meet in 2 weeks, can we take this up?
We could do that. Yeah, we could do it.
You're going to have to. It's not an agenda
I think
item,
we'll
so
have to. I just wondered if we could just get a consensus. I know, I think it was South Ogden. They just did a telephone poll on their council to to go ahead and make that change. So let's just wait for 2 weeks and be thinking about it. I think they said Ogden City, about 80% of what recycled earth gets comes from Ogden City. So that's the big dog, and that'll be the one that'll really affect them. So let's wait till before we make any decision. We can even put it on the agenda that for that next meeting we have. So go ahead.
Council, I just want to make you aware of, if you get an email from me, make sure it comes from my Riverdale City account. We got a few spoofing phishing requests from the same email. It's a Gmail account. Came through the city, went to the various staff members asking for various actions to take place based on the sender of the email acting like it was me. So be mindful of that. It comes out of a Gmail account, and I don't do things through my Gmail account at the city. So if you get something, just quickly glance and make sure it comes from riverdalecity.com. So
okay. Any other discretionary? Did you have something, Bart, or you just waving? Okay. Hey, need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, Fire Department, for being here. Chief West.